actually, I finished my MD from AIIMS Bhubaneswar in 2022. So during my MD itself, I developed a knack for hematopathology. Even even in AIIMS, like we finished our exams in November 2021. So and our tenure was till February 2022. So in the interim period, also I deliberately took postings in the hemat lab. And once I finished my tenure at AIIMS, I started preparing for DM hematopath. So in my first attempt, it was in 2022 itself. I couldn't clear the exam. In fact, in that session, no one qualified. So I had just missed out by 1 mark. And right after that, I saw the opening at Tata Medical Center, where actually I was, where I gave the interview, and I got a seat for my fellowship in hematopath in Tata Medical Center. And then I started doing my fellowship, and I had a number of people who inspired me, like DK Mishra sir, Ashish sir, Mayur sir. These people were my pillars, and these people, they definitely fueled my interest in the subject even more. And even my co-fellows, my seniors, all of them had a huge role to play. Pratush himself is a big part of my journey, in fact. Even while I was doing my fellowship in the second year itself, I faced quite a few personal problems. I'm not going to talk about all those, but I had a lot of issues, and I had the support of multiple people, Pratush included. And after I finished my fellowship, I joined SRship in NRS Medical College in the Department of Hematopath. I did my SRship for 5 months approximately. Then I became an associate consultant in Apollo Hospitals. While I was working as a consultant, I started preparing all over again for my DM exams. That is where pathology MCQs came into the scene. So I did not opt for the video package. I mainly opted for the notes. So the main issue in cracking the DM exam is that, particularly for people who have already started pursuing a career in hematopath, is there are plenty of questions from histopath, there are questions from cytopath, general path, and techniques. So this is the lacuna which has to be filled up. That is where pathology MCQs played a huge role. I took the study material for around 3-4 months. I went through the notes, and I mainly went through the general path notes, not so much of the hemat notes. And I think it just clicked, and I gave the exam, and it just worked out well. I got a rank 4 in the common merit list and rank 1 in the AIIMS merit list. And I have joined hematopathology in PGIM at Chandigarh. So I'll be starting the course very soon. 1st of July itself, in fact.
I completed my residency in February this year, and it was my first attempt at the INISS exam, and I secured a common merit list rank 1 and AIIMS merit list rank 3. So my interest in hematopathology developed during my residency. What attracted me most to hematopathology is that it is not a one-time diagnosis-based branch, but it involves a long-term follow-up, and it involves MRD, response assessment, relapse evaluation. So our reports not just give a diagnosis, but they also guide the treatment decision, and they help clinicians plan further management. Also, hematopathology is a rapidly evolving field with flow cytometry, molecular pathology, cytogenetics, targeted therapy. So all this really motivated me to take up this branch. So for my preparation, I started by revising the notes I had made for my MD pathology exams. I tried not to go after too many resources. During my residency, I had made notes on important topics from sources such as standard textbooks, our reporting discussions, our departmental seminars. So I used these notes as the base for my revision. Then one thing I realized that it is very important to read WHO classification of hematolymphoid tumors. And while reading it, I realized that it is actually enjoyable to read it. In fact, my favorite part during my study time used to be reading WHO because it is a very structured book. Like for every entity, they first start with the definition. Then there are clinical features, epidemiology, pathogenesis, morphology, flow, molecular, and it ends with the prognosis. So reading WHO gave me a practical diagnostic approach, and rather than just reading a list of diseases. But for INISS, reading just malignancy is not enough. We have to read benign hematology as well, including anemias, RBC disorders, coagulation, transfusion medicine, and we have to read molecular pathology, general pathology, like so many other things except the malignant part. So for all this, I found pathology MCQs notes to be very helpful because every chapter has a concise summary and the whole content is organized in a chapter wise manner and a topic wise manner. So it made my revision systematic and it made my preparation less overwhelming. And each topic is further, divided into smaller subtopics. So it helped me approach the subject in a step by step manner, rather than reading the whole information in a scattered way. And the notes are concise and they cover all the important exam points, and these points are also given in the form of tables, flow charts, diagrams, memory tricks. So all this, it makes the content easier to retain. And at the end of every chapter there is also a small quiz. So by solving that quiz, we can combine revision, learning, and recall all in one place. Like you can read a chapter and then immediately you can test yourself with the MCQs. And apart from the quizzes, the website also has a dedicated section of mock tests and previous year MCQs. And to be very honest, in the last 5 days before my exam, I just focused on the mock tests. I think there are 7 mock tests on the website and the previous year MCQs. And this proved to be very helpful because it helped me practice questions which are close to the actual exam. Like I realized that many concepts of the mock tests were reflected in the main exam, and some questions were even direct hits, and many questions were conceptually similar. So the mock tests were very useful in the final phase. And apart from this, I would say we have to be updated with the latest changes in the WHO classification, because the classification and molecular pathology have become a very important part of hematopathology. And we have to give equal importance to all the subdivisions of hematopathology, such as, like, many times we ignore histotechniques, lab principles, transfusion medicine, but all this is asked in the exam, and moreover it is also important for a daily practice, for a daily diagnostic practice. Then, apart from all this, general pathology remains the cornerstone of this exam. All the chapters such as neoplasia, genetics, inflammation, they remain as important as ever. And along with that, molecular pathology is the future of pathology. So we also have to be comfortable with the common translocations and mutations and how they affect the prognosis. And uh, my advice to everyone who is preparing for the exam would be that our preparation should not be based only on rote learning now, it should be based on practical concepts. Because, like, if we ask our seniors about how exams used to be years back, the pattern is now changing. Now there are less memory based facts, and it is more application based and scenario based. Like, they want to test how we approach a case. So, uh, so yes, we have to incorporate all this in our preparation as well. And in the interview round, they can ask anything. In my interview, they gave me 2 scenarios and 1 flow plot. So I would advise people who are preparing to practice case-based thinking, because every case will start with the CBC, with the basic CBC, then the PS, then the bone marrow, then flow, and then any ancillary technique. So yes, for DM preparation, I would advise not to run after too many resources, but to keep the resources limited, but revise them repeatedly and practice MCQs as well, and give equal importance to histotechnique, general pathology, quality control. And in the last few days, we should focus on the mock test and the previous year questions. And another thing I experienced during the exam was that I felt that the first half of the exam was a bit tougher and the later half was more doable. So we should not panic during the exam, and we have to keep our cool and move ahead, and we should not get stuck on one question. And of course, a few questions will be difficult, but most of the exam is based on practical and core concepts. So if our basics are clear, we have a very good chance of cracking it.
Everyone. I am Dr. Akshita Rakheja, and I secured a rank of 4 in the AIIMS merit list and a rank of 2 in the common merit list in the INISS exam. So I completed my MD in February 2025 from Grand Medical College, Mumbai. And after that, I was doing my 1-year mandatory bonded SRship in Sion Hospital. So my interest in hemat definitely developed in residency. I was always more inclined towards it more than histopath. Even just the reading and the theory part of it also, I just gravitated more towards it. But definitely there were some drawbacks that we didn't really have any exposure to flow cytometry and all the molecular techniques and everything. So I used to just read about them in theory, but then I never really got to see any practical aspect or the practical approach to any of these things. And I always felt that this is a lacuna, and I want to know more about this and how do actually people practice the field of hematopathology. So, but at that time also, I was not really thinking too much about DM or even fellowship. I was just focusing on my SR-ship. But during SR-ship is when I started thinking about what to do in the future and if I actually want to pursue this. So I gave my first attempt this time only. I started preparing from like 2 months before the exam in February of 2026. And I actually saw one of your videos of Pathology MCQ earlier, and I saw that it really helped the top rankers. So that is how I got to know about the resource. And I also contacted one of the earlier rankers. So she also helped me out. And then I purchased the notes, and I also purchased the course. I did the same thing as everyone else. I read the notes, and once I finished every small topic, I would do the 8-9 MCQs that were there with every small topic. So that I did in the first reading itself. Then I also did the master quiz that was given after every topic. Like once I completed RBC disorders, and I would do the master quiz, which had about 50 questions on the same topic. So that also helped us like revise everything that we had studied up till that part. After that, once I did my first reading along with these MCQs, that is when I started doing the mock test as well, or during my second reading. And all this while I was also doing my SR-ship, so half of my day would go there. So I made it a point to read general path while I was at work whenever I got the time, so that I don't get bored reading the same thing again and again. So I did general path when I was in the hospital, and then once I would come back from work in the evening, I would only do hemat. Systemic path I was not really able to focus on in this attempt, and I only focused on general path and hemat. I thought I should only target the things that I'm able to actually complete. So in the second reading, I started giving the mock test, and as Erna said, it was actually very helpful because they have 80 questions in 90 minutes, which is exactly like the exam format. And after NEET PG, we haven't really been exposed to the MCQ pattern of solving questions in that amount of time. So it was really required to do the mock test because we're really not able to keep the track of time. And I think for the first two tests, I was actually lagging very behind. But then eventually I got the knack of it. So it was the mock tests were very useful, and actually I also felt that many questions in the actual exam were based on those questions. And in the actual exam, I also felt that general path was comparatively much easier as compared to the hematopath. And as Erna said, the hematopath questions were more concentrated in the first half, and general path was more towards the second part. And so second part was much easier and much more simpler as compared to the hemat part. Hemat was definitely a bit on the tougher side and more focused on the practical aspect of things. So yeah, definitely we need to learn how to approach these things, because I also didn't have much exposure in flow cytometry. So I also felt that I had to work a bit more harder on these things, because theory was still easy. The notes were very concise. It was enough. I didn't have to refer to any other resource. So theory was easy to cover. All the extra things that were needed were there in the notes. But the practical things I was able to do only by solving the questions again and again and focusing where I'm going wrong in these things. So the mock tests are very, very useful for this. And in the interview, I was also asked the flow plots, and I definitely felt that my interview didn't go as well as I wanted to. But I guess I was not very acquainted with these things because I've not actually worked in a hemat setup, so maybe that was a drawback. So definitely, if anyone has the chance to get some practical experience, it would be more helpful, because in this limited amount of time, I think I'm able to focus more on theory to crack the exam. But the interview, I was not able to do very well. But yeah, we have to keep both things in mind when we're preparing. But definitely, it can be done. It is, I think, getting tougher every year. The level of the exam, they're definitely increasing the level. But I feel if we focus on this and give like 3-4 months of focused preparation, then it is definitely can be done. It's not something too out of the box. There's some things which are asked out of syllabus, but that's okay. It can be tackled with. So yeah, that was my whole preparation.
Congratulations, everyone, on the great ranks and the great achievement again. And wishing you all a bright future. And it's great that you guys have all done so well, and you've chosen a branch which has an amazing future ahead. But one thing I saw a common, which is there in all of you, is that everyone had the foresight of targeting hematpath. Like you all were focused, and you all were not confused of choosing oncopath or molecular path or hematpath separately, but you just had your focus and you kept on working on it. And everyone had their own struggles, but you all have made it through. So that's a great achievement. So wishing you all the best again.